Good evening, everyone, to another episode of the CEO's Chair. It's a very special episode that we've planned for you today because we've tied up with Priya Dhawan and LinkedIn Local Pune for a special guest, and this is the first time that we're doing it with a live audience. So, thank you to all of you and welcome back. Our guest today is a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, Mr. Manish Harodia. Welcome to the CEO's Chair.
Thank you very much.
So, Manish is originally from Dhanbad in Bihar. He is a pass out from IIM Kozhikode. He is currently the CEO of RUBIX 108 Technologies. He's started, founded, as well as exited from several companies in the past. Some of them have been Genesis Mentors, as well as Dream Wallets. Is that correct? Excellent. So, Manish, as a serial entrepreneur, as an angel investor, tell me a little bit about how you got started and a few lines about the journey from Dhanbad all the way to Pune.
Thank you, everyone for having me over here. It's been a pleasure, and coming in from Dhanbad, it was obviously a major change as far as the scenario, the competitiveness was concerned. Truth be told, I quit my studies thrice, so I dropped out of my school after 10th, did not join a school, dropped out of school again after 12th. And then again, there was another motivation required to go ahead and finish graduation, which finally resulted in completing my post-graduation as well. So I would not want to, take you on a life journey of what all these respective motivations were. But I would like to share certain things which I believe will cover during the course of our discussion, things which I have learned. And trust me, I have learned much more from failures and less from the successes that have happened in the past.
That's amazing, Manish. Thank you. Let's roll back the clock a little bit and start from your time at IIM. The IIM, as we know, is considered to be the gold standard of education, at least in India. How well do you think your education in IIM prepared you for the real world, and did it actually help?
So IIM, as the media claims, is Indian Institute of Management, but I beg to differ over here. It's actually Indian Institute of Marwadis because they really teach you how to do business, and I am a Marwadi, coincidentally. So I realized right from the day when we stepped into the institution till the time we came out of the institution, one thing which was really drilled into our minds consciously and subconsciously was, you guys are supposed to be the best business brains, which I still have apprehensions into because I've met some fantastic entrepreneurs who did not have any formal management education, but they are doing exceptionally well. So, I would not hesitate to say that there was a lot of gap between the theory that we were taught at the IIMs or any other institution of, certain pedigree in India vis-a-vis what you do in the business. So, what I learned in 3 months of my first entrepreneurial stint, I think I would rate it to be far greater in terms of value than my 2 years at the IIM. Because we learn models, we learn frameworks, we learn case studies. But what has happened in the past may actually not repeat in future, right? If I'm studying a Patanjali case or a Maggie case study, how Maggie bounced back, I would not be applying the same solution if my company goes through a similar trauma in days to come. So somehow I find a lot of dissonance between what we are taught at the B school vis-a-vis what really happens on the ground in terms of business. But having said that, the institution definitely gives you a lot of credibility. The institution definitely teaches you to think from a much macro perspective. Right, guys, I'll try to answer how to select a co-founder. And Y Combinator, or in fact, even the leading B schools have come out with reports of companies that have succeeded, companies that have failed. Please take it with a pinch of salt. What is theorized based on historical companies may not hold true for future. One of the major reasons why startups at the early stage fall out is not because of lack of product or lack of market understanding or lack of investments. It is because of the co-founders fallout. And I always tell people who come to me or people who are starting out on their journey to spend more time identifying a co-founder than identifying a life partner. Because, rules probably facilitate you to get rid of life partner relatively easy compared to getting rid of your co-founder because of the archaic, Companies Act that we all are part of. So spend more time investing into identifying the right co-founder. Do not simply go ahead with a co-founder because you like him or her. He or she should make sense, should be contributing to certain aspects of business which you are deficient in, and that is what makes a winning team, in my opinion.
So the co-founders that you've selected in the past have had what top two qualities according to you?
Uh,
Just two.
it's a pretty tough one. Uh, the guys I have worked with, like I'll be very honest
Sure,
over
please.
here, maybe at the risk of being
No, no,
blasphemized by the startup community, but I have always put in almost 90% of my decision on the integrity or the passion with which the guy comes across or presents his ideas. Because as I repeated in my previous question, I'll repeat it again. If you have a good presence of mind, if you have a good focus, if your thought process is pretty structured, businesses will evolve. Twitter was not Twitter unless it pivoted. There are hundreds and thousands of companies who did not get the first get their market or get their product right the first time. So product or idea or service is definitely bound to evolve. You need to have integrity as definitely the first choice, and to an extent of maybe 90-95%. And the second one which I would want to look in for is maybe he should be able to articulate well, because at the end of it, if you're looking at some sort of investments or some sort of selling your company to your customers, you need to really communicate well. And communication is not only commanding a terrific vocabulary. Communication to me is simply articulating what your business is to somebody who's the recipient of your product or service.
So we are saying integrity, passion, as well as the ability to sell your dream or your.
And therefore,
Sorry to interrupt, but we were having a short conversation a little while ago where we were talking about the funding aspect, and now you've been on both sides of the table. You've been an entrepreneur which has been seeking funds. You are also an angel investor, and you're currently in the process of raising multiple rounds of investment for your current organization. I know that you encourage startup founders to stay self-funded as long as possible, despite the fact of you being an angel investor. Why is that?
So the answer is pretty simple. When somebody comes and claims I am really passionate about my idea, I really believe that I've done enough research and I'm extremely confident of this business definitely taking off. Maybe sometimes we do it as a measure to check how serious they really are. So I would simply ask him, would you mortgage your house to fund the first 6 months or to fund the first year of your business operation? The answer is immaterial, but the way in which the answer is presented gives you a strong insight into the thought process and the psyche of the entrepreneur who's presenting the idea. So that's one. And two, the longer you can bootstrap your company, provided obviously the other checkboxes are taken care of, the more value is automatically created. So I was hired as a assistant vice president, and the first day of my job, the head of department, I would obviously not name him because we are still friends, but he said, I hate people who come from the IITs and the IIMs. And this was the first statement I heard.
He hates them. That's what he said?
Yeah, that's what he said. And I'll probably come to the reasons why he said so. This was the first welcome statement. And imagine after, maybe going through grueling process, because I was hired for the UK division. So I was part of the global team at HSBC called Business Transformation Group. And that's the first thing you hear. And all the while, the prior 2 years, you have been hammered that you guys are the best. And this is the first thing that you hear in your corporate life after your graduation. I was obviously taken aback. And then he went on to elaborate. I did not do my MBA from any of the IIMs. I did not even do my engineering from any of the IITs. Yet I am the head of the department. I said, yes, sir, true. But you are like 55 and I am maybe 30. And there are a couple of promotions which would probably make me at par, but obviously I would not say it on his face. So that was the first learning which I had with respect to people's psychology and team or leadership. The reason why people underperform or the reason why people are unable to contribute as strongly as they could otherwise to the cause is because of lack of a good leadership. So I faced a big leadership crisis, and this was one of the reasons which probably forced me to sort of resign without any reason after a while. I just left HSBC. It was a wonderful career, big fat paying check. So I would really anticipate and hope for 30th to come, because that's the day when the salary gets credited. And for the next 10 years, I started hating 30th because of this one decision, because every 30th you have to credit other salaries, right? So if you understand, the only change that has happened is with respect to you being aligned with the corporate goals vis-a-vis you trying to define corporate goals. So that, in my opinion, was the biggest challenge that I had in the first year. From loving 30th to simply hitting 30th till the time the company became profitable.
If anything, you should thank him, because that's how you got your start as an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship is synonymous with risk, as I'm sure a corporate career nowadays is as well. Manish, let's talk about the biggest risk that you've taken in your life.
So I was unemployed 2 months before my marriage, and so I'm married to the daughter of an industrialist. And the only reason our marriage got finalized was because her grandfather came and saw HSBC building, and obviously he was not allowed inside, and I was not aware that he has come to see my office. He came to see the office, and somebody told him, "Ye Manish ka office hai." So he presumed that that's my office. Okay. Went back, marriage dates got announced, and the only lady or the only person who knew that I was unemployed at the time of my marriage was my wife. And for 2 months, I was actually unemployed. I would leave my home right at the office time, come back at the office time. And during these 2 months, I think I faced the most serious challenges, the challenges of self-doubt, challenges of maybe taking only one single soul in your stride and taking probably the biggest decisions, because I said co-founder selection is far more critical than a life partner selection. And even with my wife, it was a co-founder selection which actually started with. So we wanted to do a business together before we even dated. And now I suddenly realized probably, it's becoming too much of a reality. The co-founder is turning into a life partner. So it might be too much to swallow. But I think...
so she had to pass 2 levels of testing to actually get to...
I have absolutely no clue who passed what. But I think all's well that ends well. To... very pointedly answering your question, where does motivation comes from? I have tried all the usual things, as they say. There are tremendous amount of authors who write brilliant books on motivation, but no one learns swimming by reading a book. So if you have to learn swimming, you really have to jump into it. So the same is the case with motivation. It's very similar to having a bath. Motivation doesn't last long, and that's why people recommend bathing every day. So you need to motivate yourself day in and day out.
Thank you so much, Manish. And I think that is a takeaway for us all. We usually confuse ourselves by saying first motivation and then action. If anything, it should be the other way around. Do the action first and motivation itself will follow. Thank you so much to all of you. You've been a great audience, and thank you for watching. The CEO's Chair is truly about every single person inspiring the person that is next to them. So have a great evening ahead, and thanks again, LinkedIn Local Pune, and Manish Harodia as well.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you all.